Don't know if this is working or not, so please be seated, everyone. Welcome, everyone. My name is Bob Hose, and I'm with the Westminster Fire Department. I want to thank you all for attending today's service as we celebrate the life of David Sagel. I would like to recognize several people in attendance with us today. From the City of Westminster, Mayor Herb Atchison, Mayor Pro Tem Anita Seitz, Councilor Dave DeMott, City Manager Don Tripp, and Finance Director Tammy Hitchens. We also have several of our partner North Area fire agencies represented. From Federal Heights, Chief Mark Mahoney. From Adams County Fire, Chief Stuart Sunderland, Deputy Chief Troy Patterson, Battalion Chief Rich Bush, and Battalion Chief Clinton Garner. From Thornton Fire, Chief Gordy Olson, and from North Metro Fire, Chief Dave Ramos, Deputy Chief Dave Anderson, and Deputy Chief Jeff Bybee. The support and help that you have all provided to Westminster has been outstanding and is very much appreciated. Also in attendance with us is former Westminster Deputy Fire Chief and current Grand Junction Fire Chief Ken Watkins. Thank you all for coming to help us celebrate Dave's life. As all of you arrived, you likely noticed the large numbers of people that have come to the service to demonstrate their feelings for Dave and to support the family. What you don't see is the many others that couldn't make it. We have COVID, we have other restrictions, but they're viewing this remotely online through the live streaming. The sheer number of people attending is a testament to Dave and represents who he was as a firefighter, a person, a husband, a father, a son, and a friend. I knew Dave for almost 30 years when I was first affiliated with Westminster Fire, and he had been a newly promoted engineer. Several years later, after I made engineer, our paths paralleled for a long time. We were both promoted to lieutenant within months of each other, and also to captain within a short time of each other. Dave was my best cover guy, and all of you in the fire service know how important that can be to have a good cover person. We both lived close enough to cover each other for those short stints of 3, 4, or 5 hours, when our kids had something going on, when we were taking a class. Dave's willingness to always help out and cover is just a small example of who he was. He was a true servant for all those around him, whether coordinating and leading the efforts to remodel foster homes, coordinating the Hot Times Cool Cars events to raise money for Children's Hospital, or helping create the Blazing Bullets Trail Run to provide funding for the Westminster Public Safety Recognition Foundation. Dave was always there to help others. He was tireless in his efforts, and because of who he was and what he represented, we have a very large audience here today, here and listening remotely. Today we'll hear from some that knew Dave best. We'll honor his firefighting career, and we'll honor his life. We'll smile at memories, and we'll cry for the same. After the service, we will have a procession of Westminster Fire units that will pass by 2 stations where Dave spent most of his career, stations 1 and 5. And those of us that have been around here will know that his mark has been left on every fire station and firefighter in Westminster. And as the service concludes today and we go about our separate ways, we will always remember Dave for the person he was, for the things he did, and how he was a shining example of how you should live your life. I would now like to call up to the podium Westminster Fire Chief Doug Hall to provide the eulogy.
Good morning. On behalf of the Sagel family, I want to thank Pastor Rick Long and the Grace Church staff for providing this wonderful venue. Also want to give thanks and appreciation to Jordan Long for his support throughout this week. If you personally know Dave Sagel, consider yourself fortunate. If Dave Sagel consider you a friend, consider yourself blessed. Dave represents so much of what so many of us are striving to be. Throughout Dave's 34-year career, he exhibited a tremendous commitment not only to his duties within the Westminster Fire Department, but out in the community. He was engaged continually in a number of big projects internally and externally. Dave gave of his time willingly, without reservation, and Dave brought a tremendous skill set. There's nothing that I'm aware of that he couldn't design, plan, and build, whether it be out of wood, metal, machinery. He just had that type of skill set that was so valuable throughout his career and his life. There were many times Dave would encounter a Westminster resident that was in need of something. It might be a wheelchair ramp. It might be some alteration to their home where doorways to gain entry into the home needed to be widened. Doors throughout the house, the bedroom, the bathrooms, other access points needed to be modified in order for them to have a higher quality of life. Dave never hesitated to be a part of that. He would identify a project, and then he would go out and cajole our city hardwood retailers into becoming partners. They ended up donating a lot of free materials in that partnership, and it worked well. Throughout this time of giving to others and managing and leading and guiding these projects, Dave never, not once, not a single time, sought attention for himself. Never wanted it, never sought it, never wanted the limelight on him. It was all about the service to others. And I remember back in the day when I was a captain, and Dave was certainly a firefighter. He might have been recently promoted to engineer. And most in attendance today sort of understand that hierarchy, that, you know, you got a captain and then you got the engineer firefighter type. Dave had been on the job a short few years and had completed several projects, and I thought, that might be something I want to get involved in. So you got to understand, I don't have any skills with regard to that stuff. Tools and I are like opposites. It's dangerous. But I go to Dave. I say, Dave, I'd like to help out with a project, but I don't have any skills. Dave never missed a beat. Just matter of fact, responded back. Now remember, I'm a captain. I'm thinking I'm going to get a clipboard and a pencil, maybe help with supervision. Oh no, Dave. Well, that's okay. You can fill a laborer position. We need people to carry things. So, I ended up blisters, But Dave was all about the project. Throughout, Dave was an extraordinarily humble human being. He was always grounded as a person. He always knew where he was with his value system. And his primary motivating purpose was to be of service to others, to make it better for others. We often hear about a person's servant leadership traits. I think with Dave it was much more. I think Dave brought a servant's personality 24/7. He was always looking for those opportunities to be a servant to others. We learned early on in Dave's career that every time Dave transferred to a fire station, we were about to take on a new capital improvement project. There would be some alteration, modification, or substantial remodel to a fire station. Never failed. And I recall asking him once why he thought that was necessary. Dave smiled that great smile of his and said, "I'm just trying to make it better for others." Servant's personality. I was talking with some of the crews that worked with Dave a couple of days ago and talking about stories, and relayed a couple of my stories about Dave, and they smiled and laughed and said, "Yep. When we were working with Dave, we asked him how he got all these things done." Again, so matter of fact, Dave just pointed out, "Well, I just do it and ask for permission later." Well, those of us that are directly responsible for managing a budget, that's a frightening statement. But it worked for him. Mr. Sagel, many of us have gotten to know you throughout Dave's career. You will forever be considered a part of the Westminster Fire Department and a part of the fire department family. And I know you're proud of Dave. I think it's the words provided by Westminster Fire Lieutenant Brian Clark that provides great insight into Dave's character. And I think it represents your role in Dave's life as his father. Lieutenant Clark said the following: "Cappy wasn't a great man because he was a firefighter. He was a firefighter because he was a great man." And sir, I think that's a tribute to you as his father as well. So thank you. Dave is survived by his wife of 33 years, Pam, and two outstanding young men, his sons, Spencer and Austin. And I tell you, we will forever remember Dave. Each of you will forever be a part of the Westminster Fire Department family. We are here for you today. We'll be here for you far into the future. We love Dave, and we love you. Going forward, I ask that we each take into consideration the wonderful servant personality of Fire Captain David Sagel. Let's each make a commitment to embrace those servant qualities, allowing this to be Dave's legacy to us and to the world. Thank you for being here today and honoring Fire Captain David Sagel. Please be safe.
Thank you, Chief. As I mentioned before, Dave had a lot of friends, and he chose two of those in particular, both people he worked with, to say some words today. I'd like to first invite firefighter paramedic Mark Bodie to come and make some remarks, and then he'll be followed by fire engineer Devin Whedon, who will also be sharing some of his thoughts.
I just got a few pages to go through. Hope you don't mind. My name is Mark Bodie. I'm a firefighter paramedic. I was Dave's paramedic for almost 5 years. Station 1, Station 5. And Pam, Sagel family, it's an honor. And for these tears, for all you young guys, you're probably laughing right now. That's okay. It's worth it. So when I found out Dave had cancer, I had some kind of horrible thoughts. Like, who's going to help me with my house? Who's going to help me fix my car? Who's going to help me with this? Who's going to help me with that? I know, I'm kind of a jerk when it comes to that, but actually, I was pretty scared and sad and worried for Dave. I realized that Dave's cancer is not about me or how it affects me. Dave would never think that way. Dave always put himself first. He put his family first, his crew first, his friends first, almost everybody else he put first. We all know what he did with the foster homes and cool times, hot cars, helped countless people. Never took credit, and always passed the credit on to somebody else. And let's face it, there's not many of us that can do what Dave did the way Dave did it. Cancer sucks. When Dave first found out he had a cancer, he didn't skip a beat. He didn't feel sorry for himself. He continued to work the job at task. Did not ask for help. Help had to be forced on him. If you didn't know how sick he was at the beginning, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. Asking for help was not in his vocabulary or his nature. Cancer sucks. This part's going to be real hard. Dave's first thoughts after being diagnosed was of his family. He told me he had plans with his awesome and beautiful wife, Pam, that they would retire at the same time and basically ride off into the sunset together. He told me that he made a promise to Pam that she would stay home, raise the boys, put off her education until the house was finished and the boys were old enough to go to school. So that's what happened. Pam got her education, became a math teacher. Well, if you know Dave, he could fix almost just about anything. We had a saying, you have to make it worse before you can make it better. Heard that a lot. Pam, on the other hand, can't fix much of anything. She may not know how to change the oil in her car, but she can calculate the correct amount of torque it takes to tighten the plug on the drain pan. Pam ran that house, and Dave loved her with all his heart. Pam was always right. We heard that all the time. Pam is always right. I don't know, let me ask Pam. All the time. Pam would put Dave on diets. I don't quite understand why, but and of course he only followed him at home. So she put him on a no sugar diet. So Pam threw all the crappy sugary food out of her house. But Dave made the mistake of telling us that. So what do good firefighter buddies do? We went shopping and every time we went shopping, we bought ice cream. Dave loved his ice cream. Yep. He could eat a lot of ice cream. We actually had to buy extra just because of that. But anyway, so sorry, Pam, Dave ate ice cream. But he would always say, don't tell Pam. Pam can't hear about it. We love you, Pam. Dave and his dad were very close. They shared the love of fixing up old things. Cars, trucks, tractors, Jeeps, even a motorhome. They spent countless hours in the barn together. They loved to argue. Argued about everything. Sometimes I don't know how any work got done. They argued so much. But the funny thing is, a lot of times, both of them were right. There was an old 58 tractor, Ford tractor in the barn. It would turn over, but wouldn't start. Dad, Dave Sagel, said, it's got to be the distributor cap. Captain Dave Sagel said, nope, it's got to be the carburetor. So they each took their part, went back to their little workbench, did whatever they do, took it all apart and cleaned it up, and sure enough, they were both bad. So they were both right. Now, they didn't argue about everything. Electrical problems. Anything electrical, Dad, Dave Sagel, won that argument. He was always right. Cancer sucks. I was not fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with his two sons, Austin and Spencer. I do know he was very proud of them. And he was a very proud father. Loved both of them unconditionally. They are both college graduates and both productive members of society. Dave would say that I could always tell when one or both of the boys had been by the house. One, the refrigerator was empty, and two, there's a strange vehicle in his barn, or both. Cancer sucks. Captain David Sagel is an awesome guy. He would describe himself as the offensive guard or nose tackle of the team. Yep. One look at that, how would you like to line up against that on the other side of the football field? He did a lot of hard work. Never wanted any credit or glory. He got satisfaction from others around him succeeding. He knew he was doing his job when everybody around him was succeeding. He taught me, he always stood up for the underdog. He taught me not to prejudge people and give everyone a chance, even if they seem just a little bit off. Right, Poster? Right, Nate? What do you think about that, Allie? His crew understands that one. Dave had a good sense of humor. I know of one firefighter that reported to his office for his annual appraisal. This firefighter wore nothing but his Class A hat, sunglasses, necktie, no shirt, boxer shorts with polka dots, and his duty boots. Dave didn't skip a beat. Went right on with his appraisal. And knowing this firefighter, he's probably wearing that somewhere right now. But he's Denver's problem, not ours anymore. It was not uncommon for Dave to drop what he was doing to go help someone. I know this personally. He did it for me twice. When he was done and leaving, all I can think of was, how lucky am I to have a buddy like that? Dave always gave more than he ever received, and he wouldn't have it any other way. He just loved helping and giving. His phone would ring constantly, so he set up a secret system for a while. You call his home phone, let it ring twice, wait 2 minutes exactly, call his cell phone, then he'll answer. Dave was a master carpenter. His true passion was making cabinets. Not many people knew that. He loved making cabinets. But his expertise went far beyond that. This is hard to believe, but if you knew Dave and saw his fingers, what we lovingly call the hammers, big fat fingers, no fingernails, rough skin, but he had the best dexterity of anybody I've ever known. He could take the smallest nuts, washers, bolts, and rebuild a carburetor with them with those big, fat sausage fingers. It was amazing. And yet, those same fingers can carry 2 sheets of plywood at the same time, splinters and all. He never wore gloves. Dave was a smart guy. that didn't get much credit for being smart. Our new paramedic students always found out about it. As part of the student program, you have to teach a class, so Dave would give them a subject. And then, when they were done, Dave would just turn it all over and turn it around into automotive terms, just to prove that he understood. That was always fun to watch the students squirm. For several years down at Station 1, we had a great crew. We'd sit around and watch the TV show Gold Rush. And we'd talk about who would do what job would they do, what crew would they be on. Of course, Dave was the mechanic, fixing all the broken equipment. But he also wanted to be on the Hoffman crew. And if you've seen the show, that's the worst crew. That is the worst. Those guys didn't know what they were doing. Never understood why he wanted to be on that one, on that crew. But didn't surprise me. I think all you Westie guys know, and gals, sorry, know that if you want something done, you get Captain Sagel at the station. Gets it done. But what you didn't know is that he did spend a lot of his own money on a lot of the stuff that was done, and his free time. He left his mark for a long time to come. You always felt Dave had your back. I know for a fact that he would get in trouble because of some things that his crew may have done or may have not done. He was a great buffer. If his barn door was up, you can count on visitors. I needed some welding done on my trailer, so I just figured I'll drive by and see if the barn door's up. Sure enough, it was up. He got all the welding stuff out, ready to go for me. He said, okay, have at it. I literally went, and he pushed me out of the way and did it for me. Dave taught me that you cannot have too many utility knives. And overalls, not coveralls. Overalls with the one strap, just one strap hooked up. That was kind of his trademark. He did that with his bunker gear as well, just one strap. One thing I never did see from Dave is that I never saw him mad. I asked him one time, how do you do that? Like, for example, he would spend months, not months, maybe a month, maybe months, I don't know, a long time on a project. Work on it, put his heart and soul into it, finish it up, and it looked awesome. Someone would come in and say, why'd you do it that way? You should have done it this way. And Dave would just smile and not say a word. He told me, I know what I know, that person doesn't know. That's what I love about him, the ability to have things roll off his back. Later in his career, he liked to work out. He was funny about it, though. We did work out every single shift, no matter what. Devin was a big part of that, making sure we all got our workout in. But he was kind of funny about it. He would always we'd do CrossFit workouts. So he would always take the lightest weight that he could, do every modification that he could get away with, and then still sandbag the workout. Not that he didn't work hard, because he did, but after the workout was over, he'd always say, I should have used a heavier weight. I should have done real pull-ups. I think he was doing it to make everybody comfortable working out. They didn't have to be the strongest, because he wasn't going to be the strongest. Once again, thinking about others. You Adams County guys, our cousins that lived with us for a while, know and saw that. I could go on for a long time about Captain David Sagel, but most of those conversations should probably be held at the after party or at the firehouse. One thing I do ask, next time there's a function where everybody's gathering, everybody grab a Diet Pepsi, not Coke, Diet Pepsi, Diet Mountain Dew's okay, Diet Dr. Pepper's good. Raise a Diet Pepsi to Dave. And please do it before things get out of control. We miss you. I miss you. We'll never forget you. Pam, Austin, Spencer, Dad, Dave Sagel, the entire Sagel family. We love you, and we're here for you. Cancer sucks. Thank you.
Wow. For anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Devin Whedon. I was Captain Sagel's engineer for close to 7 years. For as long as I can remember, we have always called him Cap. So that is how I'm going to reference him today. There are many things for which Cap will be remembered, but what we all will never forget is the size of his heart. One of the first times I worked with Cap was on one of the many foster home projects he ran. He was always looking for ways to give back. The man had a knack for recognizing people's strengths and knowing just how to utilize those strengths to get the job done. I didn't know you were going to tell a story about it. When he wasn't helping people in the community or renovating someone's home, he was renovating the fire stations. Cap utilized every station renovation as a teaching moment for the crews. Let me tell you, we were all well-versed in building construction, demolition, and code. We also learned that if you need one thing at the hardware store, you always picked up 5. Many of the projects were completed on time and just slightly over budget. Just slightly. His goal was to always make sure that our fire station home was just as comfortable as our personal home. Cap loved to teach about the fire profession. Paramedic students, probationary firefighters, fellow city employees, and station tours were just a few. He would throw on his bunker gear and become immersed in the lesson. Cap made sure each and every person that visited us was taken care of and had an unforgettable time. Cap was so proud of his family, and he spoke of them daily. Some of these stories were about refurbishing tractors or the infamous 49 Ford with his dad, chaining the motor down in Austin's green Jeep because it kept breaking motor mounts. And who could forget about bringing Spencer's car, Frankie, back to roadworthy status more times than I can remember. One of my favorite times of the year was the annual station Christmas party hosted by Cap and Pam. They would open their amazing house to Cap's crew from the previous year. We would eat, drink, and laugh for hours. There was the highlight of the evening was always the white elephant gift exchange. Pam and Cap always had the best gifts that all the kids and some of the adults wanted. At the end, when it was all over, Cap would always stand up and say, "Pam and I do this as a thank you for making it another great year." Cap was always mentoring and helping us reach our personal and professional goals. One thing he was always working with me on was my ability to speak in public in large crowds. Well played, Cap. You got me up here. Sagel family, you can rest assured that Cap's legacy of kindness will live on through each member of this fire department. He was a tireless community servant, a dedicated fire captain, and most of all, an amazing friend. So for now, Cap, our debate over Fords versus Chevys will have to wait. Rest in peace. You've definitely left this world better than it was before you came.
Good morning to you all. By way of introduction, my name is Tom Tice. For the past 17 and a half years, I've had the privilege to be the chaplain for the Westminster Fire Department. Thank you for being here. We're going to turn this morning to a passage of Scripture in the Gospel of Luke, in chapter 22. Before I begin reading, I'll give you the context. It's the Last Supper. Christ is gathered in the upper room with his disciples. As they were there, he had done all the things of which we've heard. He had spoken to them already about things to come. He had washed their feet. And then in the course of the evening, a disagreement arose among the disciples. And that's where our reading picks up. Now there was also a dispute among them as to which of them should be considered the greatest. And he said to them, the kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and those who exercise authority over them are called benefactors. But not so among you. On the contrary, he who is greatest among you, let him be as the younger, and he who governs as he who serves. For who is greater, he who sits at the table or he who serves? Is not he who sits at the table? Yet I am among you as the one who serves. And therein lies our text for this morning. I am among you as the one who serves. Everyone who has come before me this morning has in one way or another introduced our text. Last Saturday, I had the opportunity to accompany Chief Hose to the Sagel home. Pam was there. We sat in the front room, and Dave was there. We had a conversation. The conversation that we had was about this occasion. I don't believe anybody in the room thought at that moment that this occasion would be less than a week later. We all thought we had more time, but we did not. As we sat there, Dave said, I would like for you to say a few words, Chaplain. I said, all right. And of course, when you say that to me, I start to think immediately, what am I going to say? And as the conversation rolled on, I came to this text of Scripture. I am among you as the one who serves. You see, David believed. He expressed his faith in Christ quite firmly and was very clear about it. And as this verse came to mind, I looked it up and we read it. And I said, look, Dave, this is what I want to tell these people. And he looked me in the eye and he said, that's good. That's good. You see, life is full of a lot of questions. The questions that we have are, who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? And what difference can I make? When I consider the life of Captain David Sagel, I can tell you the answer to the last question very definitively. What difference can I make? Everyone who went before me this morning answered that question. Christ himself said, I am among you as the one who serves. You see, profession of religion is one thing. But I will tell you, as one who has spent decades preaching, that the best sermons are lived, not preached. Set aside all the rhetoric. Set aside all the institutionalization of religion. Set aside everything that divides and everything that characterizes religion. And when you get down to the real essence of faith, as Dave had it, you get down to this one thing. It is the imitation of Christ. You look at the life of Christ from its beginning to its very end, and what you see is an utterly selfless individual who did everything that he did for the sake of someone else. And every individual who has come up here this morning has borne testimony to the fact that Dave, while he would have not been, under any circumstances, a preacher, yet his faith lived. And the way it lived was that he was a great imitator of Christ, in that he was among us as one who served. If there's one thing that you should carry away with you today, it is this. Dave was an imitator of Christ. Dave made a difference. Be like Dave. Whether you go back to your firehouse or to your office or to your home or out into the community under any circumstance whatsoever, wherever you find yourself, be like Dave. Be among those whom you are around, in every context, as the one who serves. And if you do that, then you will have understood the lesson of a well-lived life. Christ himself commends those who live like Dave with these words, and Dave has already heard them. Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Let us pray. Our gracious Master and our God, we come unto you this morning, a mourning, grieving people. We confess unto you today that you must be our comforter. We rejoice that you are that great shepherd of the sheep, the good, the great, and the chief shepherd. We rejoice that you are the servant who has been among us as one who served. We confess unto you that we mourn the loss of a brother, of a friend, of a father, of a husband, of a helper, of a mentor, of a teacher, of a leader. Lord, we mourn the loss of this man who by his humility and service was a great man and our man. We commend him into your care. We thank you for his life. We praise you for the privilege we have had to know him, your good and faithful servant. Amen.
Westminster Fire Dispatch. This is Chief 3.
Chief 3, go ahead.
Dispatch last tones for Westminster Fire Captain Dave Sagel.
Westminster Fire, all stations and personnel, stand by for last call. Attention Westminster Fire. After 34 years of dedicated service, Fire Captain Dave Sagel has answered his last call. He served with courage and valor, and the men and women of Westminster Fire are honored to have served with him. His strength, compassion, and sacrifice will never be forgotten. His legacy will live on in his family and in the lives of all he touched. May he rest in peace. Westminster Dispatch extends our deepest condolences to Westminster Fire and the family of Fire Captain Dave Sagel.
The men and women of today's fire service are confronted with a more dangerous work environment than ever before. We are forced to continually change our strategy and tactics to accomplish our tasks. Our methods may change, but the goals remain the same as they were in the past, to save lives and protect property, sometimes at a terrible cost. This is what we do, this is our chosen profession, and this is the tradition of the firefighter. The fire service of today is ever-changing, but is steeped in traditions 200 years old. One such tradition is the sounding of a bell. In the past, as firefighters began their tour of duty, it was the bell that signaled the beginning of that day's shift. Through the day and the night, each alarm was sounded by a bell, which summoned these brave souls to fight fires and to place their lives in jeopardy for the good of their fellow citizens. And when the fire was out and the alarm had come to an end, it was the bell that again signaled to all the completion of the call. When a firefighter had died in the line of duty, paying the supreme sacrifice, it was the mournful toll of the bell that solemnly announced the comrade's passing. We utilize these traditions as symbols that reflect honor and respect to those who have given so much and who have served so well. To symbolize the devotion that these brave souls had for their duty, a special signal of 3 rings, 3 times each, represents the end of our comrades' duties and that they will be returning to quarters. And so to those who have selflessly given their lives for the good of their fellow man, their task completed, their duties well done. To our comrades, their last alarm, they're going home. please stand for the retrieval of the colors? Westminster Honor Guard, front and center.
Please stand. Arms. Order. Prepare to retrieve colors. Ready? Retreat. Retreat. Cover. Mark time. Mark. Move. Move.
Please be seated. Thank you. We will be dismissing this assembly in groups in order to conduct the next activities. The Westminster Fire Department personnel will be forming a cordon from the main doors to the back of Engine 5. After the honor guard places Captain Sagel onto Engine 5, Westminster Fire personnel will then return to their respective apparatus and prepare for the procession. Other previously authorized Westminster personnel will also return to their vehicles to join the procession. The procession is limited to Westminster Fire apparatus and fire personnel in their vehicles. We cannot allow any other private vehicles into the procession due to traffic escort restrictions. For those that wish to view the procession, it will be leaving here and going northbound on Sheridan. In about 45 minutes, the procession will return southbound on Sheridan. You may consider viewing it from the side of Sheridan Boulevard near the outside agency fire apparatus that is staged out there. The procession itself will conclude the service. When the procession returns, the fire apparatus will immediately depart, and that there will be a small invitation-only private reception for the family. Thank you all for coming out today. Friends and family in the middle, would you please exit the church and move to the parking lot driveway area? Thank you. Westminster chief officers, city officials, and other visiting chief officers, please dismiss to the front balcony area outside of the main doors. The crew driving Engine 5 today, please dismiss yourself to the rear of Engine 5. And again, for the remaining Westminster Fire personnel, we're going to form that cordon again from the outside doors, down that same walkway, and then to the back of Engine 5. So remaining personnel, you're dismissed. Thank you very much for attending today.